Welcome to UCHL's for today's media luncheon. Our players, Sydney Omameh, offensive center Aaron Cox, and head coach Matt Mitchell. Marty Carter has been named GLIAC Player of the Week for the second consecutive week after his record-breaking performance, 298 yards, which is also a GVSU single-game record. So, Coach, if you can talk about the victory over Northern Michigan, and we'll move on to Walsh.
Sure. Obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, set a single-game record for yardage with 741 yards. Everybody's a part of that. Coaches, players, excuse me, the entire unit. I did think our quarterback played, a really key role in that. He did some great things at the line of scrimmage in the run game to get us into some things that put our kids in an advantage before the snap. You look at Bart right now. He's basically played a little bit over 2 games. We yanked him at halftime in the one game. He didn't play a whole lot in the third and fourth quarter in the opener. He's completing close to 2/3 of his passes, and the average per completion is about 19 yards. So he's you don't usually typically see guys with completion percentages in the 60s having that high of an average per completion. So we're doing a good job of pushing the ball down the field still. Erston had a nice catch, and then obviously we got Matt Williams involved, hit a double move with him and some other things to get him kind of going, and Brandon Bean continues to be Brandon Bean, does a great job over the middle and is a physical receiver. So Martavius's record was the result of some really explosive runs. I was here when Chris Robinson broke the record before that, and I think that occurred on 35 plus carries. Martavius was able to break the single game rushing mark on just 20 carries, which is pretty remarkable. So that is a combination of things. We got it blocked up front. He was getting to the second level clean. B, he's explosive when he gets to the back end. He has high top end speed. He's tough to tackle in space. And then there's a lot of plays when you watch the tape on Sunday where our wide receivers are being very unselfish and blocking some defenders down the field and creating some edges for Marty to do what he did. So only negative I would say that came out of the thing offensively was the one turnover. We'd been very turnover free throughout the entire season so far. We did have the one fumble, but hard to argue with the numbers that the offense was putting up. I think there was a series of plays that is good for Grand Valley. There was we were in a situation down towards the scoreboard. We threw a touchdown pass to Brandon Bean. It got called back on a penalty. There wasn't any flinch out of anyone on the offensive side of the ball, coaches or players. Lined up again, called another pass play, and protected it up. He ripped one into Matt Williams, and he scored a touchdown. So we were dealt a little bit of adversity there with an unfortunate penalty, and just kind of lined back up and did it again. And that was a play that maybe not a big deal on the outside, but one of those things when you're kind of in our building, we highlight those type of plays. We were dealt some adversity with the penalty, and we kind of responded that way. Defensively, really good first half. I think the thing that was critical about the first half was, that was an offense that had a very veteran quarterback and had a plan of how to do some things. We didn't have all the 3 and outs maybe we had the first game, and that's okay. When you face good competition, it's not going to be 3 and out every time. They drove the ball a little bit on us, and I was okay with that. And we still held them to some field goal attempts, and credit Northern Michigan's kicker made a nice long field goal, and we got off the field on 4th down with some pressure. And we played some football in the first half and only gave up 3 points. We had pressure on the quarterback. He was getting the ball out quick. I think Sydney had 2.5 sacks. We had some other guys get some pressure on and hit the quarterback. And again, I think a really highlight for the defensive side of the ball as we come out to start the second half. We didn't do a very good job with the surprise onside kick by Northern Michigan. They get possession of the ball at the 50. Our defense takes the field. No big deal. When we get to 3 and out, we punt it back to our offense. That was a very, very critical possession for Grand Valley, and a great job by our defense. Obviously, we punt the ball, we get it down to the 3-yard line. We give up a 97-yard touchdown drive. We had some mistakes on that drive, and they also scored after we fumbled the ball, so we had an opportunity to sudden change, so we didn't get off the field. So I think the thing that you find on both those drives is we got them to some 3rd downs. We didn't get off the field effectively enough on 3rd down, and gave up some explosives. So probably a few more explosive plays than we like at Grand Valley. Didn't really generate any turnovers on the defensive side of the ball, so some things to work on. In special teams, our kickoff coverage, we got very selfish with our kickoff coverage. We weren't playing together. We were attacking the thing as 11 individuals. We weren't working as a unit, so we got back in on tape on that, and that was probably the biggest negative on the special teams thing. It should break the tape, but still to go out and put up 50 points, 741 yards of offense, and have our defense test a little bit. It's an okay thing, but came out of the football game pretty healthy and gives us an opportunity here, 3-0. With our competitive league, there's only 3 undefeated teams right now, and we're one of them. And gives us a chance to head out to Walsh here and put another product on the field. So, obviously, a few of the challenges with Walsh. One, the road trip in and of itself. This is our first road trip in the 2016 season. So we've been fortunate to have some great crowds, some great home atmospheres. We had the second biggest crowd in GV history with 16,000. It was just an awesome environment. I probably should have took to Twitter and thanked everybody for that after the game, but I am now. The students were out in full force. Everybody was there. It was great. And we've been very fortunate. We've been spoiled a little bit. Our game day atmosphere, our game day environment. So now we're going to have to, circle up the buses and head to Ohio. And it'll be instead of a 7 p.m. kick, it'll be a 2:30 p.m. kick. It's going to be a different field. It's going to be a different atmosphere and different environment. So that'll provide a challenge for our football team. When you take a look at Walsh, obviously they're struggling on the offensive side of the ball, struggling to consistently run the ball, and that's putting them into some longer third down situations. I think they're converting 19% of their third down situations. So they're still working to try to establish an identity on the offensive side of the ball. When I watched the tape yesterday, the entire football team, I do think they have some athletes on the defensive side of the ball. They've got some guys who run around and hit you. And are aggressive, and I think they've got some defensive ends, some defensive linemen that are twitchy. The biggest problem with their defense has been on the field a lot, and they start off the season with 2 straight road games. Not easy playing at Michigan Tech, not easy, playing at Hillsdale, and this Saturday against Saginaw Valley, turnovers ended up killing them. They fumbled on the one heading in, and then they fumbled again, which led to a scoop and score for Saginaw Valley State. So they had some untimely turnovers that led them there. So I think they understand. I would assume they understand based on the tape and the way that they're playing the football game. I don't know this because I don't know the coaches, but the style of play they're going to need are defensive battles. Those are the types of games they're going to want to be in. And so I think for us it's a great challenge for our offense to see if we can continue to go out and not turn the ball over and being explosive. And we really need our defense to continue to be a dominant defense in 2016. So we'll work to try to be 1-0 at the end of the week. We're not doing anything other than trying to be the best version of Grand Valley this whole week and find a way to be 4-0 and 1-0 in the week. Questions?
Man, I know that you got a lot of guys in these first couple of games in the late going, but have you ever had a team that's had as much roster flexibility as you have right now? Because I noticed that there were a lot of different groups of guys coming in. For instance, on the line, you had on the offensive line, you had DeLuca and Koenigsegg in there early on in that game, and they played a lot. And you seem to have a lot of flexibility with the various different groups like receivers, linebackers, and defensive backs.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on the position group you're talking about. At the offensive line position, I think we're starting to see some guys emerge, but our rotation at the offensive line position was probably more of a product, Tom, of us not knowing for sure who our best players were. So the offensive line of itself, that's one thing. At the wide receiver core, we know we have proven depth and proven talent, and it's the best thing for us over the course of a season and also in the course of the game to get a lot of those guys involved, to get a lot of those guys out there and not just play with 3 wide receivers. And so, defensively, we have our top line. When you start looking at the starters at all 3 levels, I think they're pretty established. I think the difference on the defensive side of the ball is that the next tier of guys are younger. Like you take a look at our linebackers, I think we have really 3 really solid linebackers with Joe Moran, David Talley, and Colin Slosher. That next group of guys, they need reps and experience, a lot of reps and experience. The same thing can be said of some of our backup safeties and corners and some of our next level defensive line. And so it's been valuable, I think, probably more on the defensive side of the ball that we've been able to sub a few guys out and play a lot more of those guys to get experiences. For instance, Isaiah Nkansa, one of our redshirt freshman linebackers from Mason, Ohio, the first game, played a typical first game as a freshman. Made a lot of mistakes, Game was moving pretty fast. We saw an improvement from 1 to 2, and then we saw an improvement from 2 to 3. He didn't play a lot of defensive snaps, but I think those experiences they had in game 1 and 2 allowed him to have a little bit more success and be more comfortable and confident on the special teams end of things, this past Saturday. So, each position group is a little bit different in how we handle that stuff. And the rotation on the offensive line, we're still trying to establish who the best players are, and we also understand that it is probably not realistic to play 11 regular season games with just 5 offensive linemen. That is not going to be realistic, so we need to continue to develop depth at that position.
I have a question for Sydney here about your experience at Grand Valley so far. I know you played great ball at your previous school, and you played on some good teams, but is it a different experience for you now playing on a team that's got the ability to rotate guys in and keep fresh for you during the course of a game?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like really every season is a new experience, new leadership, new people step up, but it's definitely been a new experience here at Grand Valley. And, I have the privilege of being on a really good team, not in defensive line specifically. We have a lot of people who are really good, and it allows me to, be able to rotate. I know when I'm tired or anything, I need a break. I have defensive ends, Alton Voss, Dylan Carroll, a lot of people that can just come in and, play at like the same level I can, maybe, throughout the game, keep everybody fresh.
Can you talk a little bit about what it's like for you? You saw Grand Valley on the other side before as an opposing player, but now that you're here, what are some of the things about the program and the team that have opened your eyes a little bit? Yeah,
it's definitely an interesting transition, seeing both sides of the spectrum. When I came here, one thing that really surprised me the most is just the tradition. Like, there's a lot of traditions that they have here as far as just the way they operate to breakdowns and chants and everything like that. And it's really interesting to see how that's been like passed down through generations of football and everything. It's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
I have a question for Aaron right now about what the coach was talking about before with the different guys playing on the offensive line. I know the center's in charge of what's going on up there and trying to coordinate things. Are you pretty pleased by the way guys have picked up, even the ones that weren't necessarily starting maybe the first or second game?
Yeah, I think we're all clicking on the same, the mindset that we have. We're all going in there watching film, and we all have questions. If we have questions, we talk it out and talk with Coach Morrison to figure out what's the best possible solution. There's great communication among everyone, so it makes my job easier just by communicating with them what we have to do, because if I make the wrong call, they can call me off and say, no, this is what we're doing. So I believe that we're coming along. I mean, there's still some growing pains, but I think we're getting to where we want to be. We still got a lot of work to do, but we're getting there.
Coach, could you talk a little bit more about the development of Carter? He had a great game last year in Colorado, and then the next week at Shepherd maybe possibly backslid a little bit in a game against a more experienced team. Is he one of those guys who's already gone through that process that you talked about with players improving one game to the next in a pretty massive way?
Yeah, well, I think the 2016 experiences are aided by those playoff runs that he had there in 2015. When we lost Kirk Spencer to the fracture at Pueblo, he was forced into a lot more action. He had played some, but never been I guess the number one tailback. And so for him to have some success late in the season in 2015 and also experience, Tom, some of those winter go home, those very stressful situations, performance having to be critical at that time has allowed him to get off to a good start. I think week one, documented he had a little bit of an illness and wasn't feeling 100%. I think you're seeing these last 2 weeks of full speed, Martavius Carter. And I think the thing we're probably excited down in our building is we think he can continue to be better. I think there's some things that he can work on, from the mental side of things of, just the little things of football. You're talking about a guy realistically. I mean, he played last year, but realistically as a full-time starter is only really, this is his third game as a full-time starter. And so there's still some things coming to him, but he has some gifts. He has some natural ability. It's just, it's impossible to coach some of the things that he does when he gets out in the open field. So he's off to a great start. I think he's the type of person that when has a very positive outlook. He's got a lot of bounce in his step. When he's very excited, he can achieve at a very high level. And so it's really critical that he continues to maintain the same outlook he has as we start moving forward. And he's going to have to be able to compartmentalize and handle some of the publicity he's starting to get. Back-to-back GLIAC Player of the Weeks, and starting to become somebody a lot of people know about. That will also be a new challenge for him to be able to handle some of those expectations and not be the second guy, the guy that's behind Kirk Spencer or something like that. It's going to be a little bit different for him too as a sophomore.
This is a question for Coach and Sydney. As you mentioned, turnovers have been a problem for Walsh. And their starting quarterback, Reed Worstel, he's had 1 touchdown, 5 picks. Just defensively, what things are you guys going to try to do to make him as uncomfortable as possible?
Well, I think obviously when you talk about trying to create turnovers from the interception standpoint, it all starts with the pressure on the quarterback, him feeling uncomfortable. And that pressure can come from pass rush, people in his personal space. It can also come from trying to give some different disguises on the coverage end of things. I think one thing, defensively, it's a little bit easier to get some interceptions in zone coverage because a lot of times in zone coverage you got eyes on the quarterback, and we've played a little bit more man. So I'm not hitting a panic button on the lack of interceptions. We have 1 for a touchdown with David because we have played a little bit more man, and it's not our expectation to get a lot of interceptions on man. But it starts up front. It starts with our defensive line, and certainly when you look on tape, we have a lot of confidence in our front. We feel like, as Sydney mentioned earlier in this press conference, that we have a lot of talent, a variety of talent, and it's the strength of this football team. And we have confidence in those guys, and I don't think there'll be a game that they won't go out there and feel confident about their ability, and I don't think Saturday will be any different than any other game. I think they'll understand that it all starts up front and that it's their responsibility to stop the run and get after the quarterback. But I'll let him talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, I would say that Coach Lewis and the rest of the defensive staff, that's something that they stress and we practice every day is creating turnovers. So that's definitely something we're going in the game trying to accomplish. We going in every game expecting to at least try, rake at the ball, do anything we can, get pressure on the quarterback, which leads to bad throws, which leads to interceptions, how that goes. Yeah.
Okay, that'll take care of today's media luncheon. Thank you.
All right, thanks.